Hey folks, Dan Rawls, and I'm here with an acquaintance of mine. His name is David Beavers, and I met David back in 1989, and we talk a lot about influence. For those of you that know, I've had the privilege of training tens of thousands of people in my career, and a lot of life is who you're influenced by. And this man has had an incredible influence on my life, and there's no financial gain between either one of us. We're just acquaintances. We work with the same company, but the teachings and the learning. And so today's message is about brokenness and a tough time. And for me, David, you don't know this, but I've in the last 3 years, I've spent a considerable amount of time reaching out to people like you, reaching out to previous leaders that have gone on and retired from our company, people that have left our company and gone on to other businesses, and just thanking them for how they poured into me as a kid at 21 when I started, and just being grateful for just that season. And we live in a world of just people coming and going, and divorce is rampant. It's all over, and part of my time invested in thanking the people that poured into my life is that many of them went through a divorce, and they were leaders on stage, and they were trainers and speakers, and I not only did I thank them on the phone or meeting with them in person, but I also apologized. I also asked for their forgiveness, and they said, "Well, what are you talking about?" And I said, because I was a punk kid, 25 years old, building my business, and I was so focused on me and team and leadership that I wasn't there for you. As a man, I wasn't a listening ear for you. And you were on stage with the spotlights and just influencing thousands of people, but you were broken, man. You went through a tough season of life. And so for that, I'm publicly asking for your forgiveness, because you're one of those people, but you have such an incredible message of how you bounced back from that. And maybe you could just share a word of encouragement. How did you bounce back? I mean, I've heard your story 80 times from the front of the room.
Well, thank you, and I forgive you. Start there. We all need forgiveness, and a lot of what we do in that first early part of our life is just we're just running on the energy of trying to figure out who we are and adapting and surviving. And a lot of the old baked-in stories we got as kids are driving the boat. How to be safe, how to be important, how to get love. All those baked-in messages come early. So we live out of those messages, and you were too when you were 21, 25, maybe up to whatever, and I certainly have too. And then eventually maybe those messages come into question through divorce or suffering or maybe an illness or just job loss, financial reversal. Different things have a way of breaking down what you believe makes life work. And so that's what you've gone through, and that's what I've been through. And at those times, they're really hard. They're just like, you don't think there's another day. But what it really is, it's really an opportunity for your life to open up the next chapter. It's not so much a comeback as a letting go, an unlearning of what didn't work, and underneath what doesn't work is what really does work, and that's your life. It's so viable and real and personal. So it's a necessary piece that you go through, but it's never wasted. Nothing's wasted. Even those years when you were not as present as you were apologizing for, those are not wasted years. They're preparing you. They're setting you up for doing what you're doing now, touching people through video or whatever. So it all counts. And that's the grace.
So for those people that are watching this, and maybe they're in that tough season of life, and they can't seem to find that another day. Is there going to be another day, or where is my soulmate, or where is it in life or business that I feel like everything's come crashing down? And I remember you had 3 teenagers, and you were married for over 20 years, and it's not about maybe just a divorce, but just in that world, maybe one piece of advice as we come to a close here. What's one piece of advice you could give everybody that they could get out of that state of mind?
You need a handful of people that you feel safe with. 2, 3, that's it. And if you can feel safe with them, you can be vulnerable with them, and just talking about your story. If we tell our story, what we're going through, if we tell it, and eventually we start telling the real truth, that heals us. That takes pressure off, and we're not alone. So we need some fellow travelers to be intimate in our lives and walk with us in a non-judging, non-advice giving way. Just process life with us.
Non-advice giving way. I love that.
Yeah. In other words, you share something with somebody and they don't put you at the top of their prayer list. They just listen. They're just with you. And you need a couple of people like that. They're rare. You don't need, and then when you go out and you're with the hundreds and the thousands, then you can kind of keep things to the vest. You don't have to vomit on everybody about what you're going through, but you need a handful with whom you're very naked and vulnerable.
And so in closing, I would say this, I talk a lot about the power of influence and the power of influence of those 2 or 3 people you're talking about, and how they could carry you through that season and walk with you. And I love the whole, like, hey, I'll put you on my prayer list versus just listening,
right,
and being a listening ear.
Right.
So maybe somehow, some way, this will be an encouragement to you. Thank you very much, David.
You're welcome.